Hi everyone, and welcome to my new channel. I'm Eugene, a software engineer with 15 years of experience. I created this YouTube channel to share my knowledge in programming and software development. My goal is to provide beginners with a structured learning path from the basics to more advanced topics that can be used in different software development fields. This is the first and most basic course in which we are going to learn the fundamentals of programming. This course is not a deep dive into computer science theory as you would find in a computer science degree, nor is it a programming language tutorial. Instead, we'll focus on universal programming principles using the C# programming language to get a basic understanding of programming. The reason I decided to go with C# is the language's simplicity for beginners, while the learned concepts can be easily taken to any other programming language. What's important is to understand the ideas and concepts. Let's see what we are going to learn in this course. In this course, we'll cover different topics. Here you can see a partial list of what we are going to learn. We'll begin with understanding what programming is. We'll learn about variables, user input and output, operators, conditions, loops, functions, switch statements, recursion. We'll learn a little about object-oriented programming, and we'll try everything using the C# programming language. So as you can see, we have a lot of topics to cover. So let's begin. In this lesson, which is the first one, we are going to learn what programming is, how a computer runs programs, what algorithms are, what programming languages are, compilation. We will see an example of a C# program, and we will understand how a C# program actually runs. Before we actually start writing programs, let's understand what programming is. For easier understanding, let's take a look at a very simple example, not even related to computers. Consider you are teaching a kid how to do vertical addition. So you tell him that in order to add two numbers, you need to place them one under another, then add the digits that are in the same column going from the right to the left. Then you explain that if the result of the addition of two digits is larger than 9, you have to add 1 to the column from the left and subtract 10 from the current column, and so on until you have the sum. Now, if the kid follows these steps, in the end, he will get the result. So, what we just did is that we provided the child with instructions that he is able to follow in order to perform the task of adding two numbers. Now, if we want the computer to do the same task instead of a child, we need a way to provide the computer with the same instructions, but in a way that the computer can follow and do. So basically, computer programming is the process of providing the computer with instructions that the computer can follow to perform a task. The sequence of instructions is called a program. Now, in order to write a program, we need a way to express what the program should do. A general way to describe what a program does is writing an algorithm. An algorithm is a sequence of instructions that can't be run directly by a computer, but defines the steps needed in order to solve a problem. It's important to understand that an algorithm is not a program, but it describes the steps that the program should do. Here's an example of a simple algorithm checking if a number is even or odd. As you can see, we have 5 steps that the computer will need to follow to determine if a number is even or odd. Now, consider that we want the algorithm we've just seen to run on a computer. First, we need to understand that a computer does not run algorithms, but programs. So, just like we provided the child with instructions that he is able to understand, we need to provide the computer with instructions that it can run. The problem with this is that a computer, or more precisely the CPU, the central processing unit, can only run commands that are sequences of zeros and ones that are called machine code. Now, writing machine code is extremely inconvenient and time-consuming. For example, this is how a simple hello word looks like in binary. And this is just a single word without comments. So writing a program in binary that would do what the above algorithm does would be very difficult. And this is where programming languages come in to help. Since writing in binary is not practical, people invented programming languages that are much easier for humans to read and write. The idea is that the program is written in a convenient language, and once written, the program is translated into machine code so the CPU can execute it. There are many different programming languages designed for different purposes. One of those programming languages is C#, which we are going to use in this course. Let's see an example of a program written in C# that checks if a number is odd or even. Now, I don't expect you to understand what's written here as we didn't learn it yet, but this will give you an idea of how such a program would look like. As you can see, this program is much easier for humans to understand than sequences of zeros and ones. But as we already said, the computer does not understand commands other than machine code. So in order to run this program, we need to translate it to machine code. In order to translate a program to machine code, a special program named compiler is used that translates one language to another. The sequence you see is actually true for many languages that are compiled directly to machine code, for example, the C language. In this case, we have a text file written in the C language that, using the compiler, is translated directly to zeros and ones that can be executed directly by the CPU. However, if we are programming in C#, this is not exactly the case. In case of C#, things are a little bit more complicated. The translation into machine code is done in two steps. The first step is translating or compiling the C# program into Common Intermediate Language, CIL, that still can't be executed by the computer. In order to run the CIL program, there is another special program named .NET Runtime, or more precisely the Common Language Runtime, the CLR, that is used when the user actually runs the program. The CLR takes the commands written in CIL and translates them to machine code during the actual execution. Pay attention that I intentionally simplify things at this point, as these are more complex topics which, in my opinion, should be learned at a later stage. At this point, I just gave you the basic understanding you need to get started with programming. Now that we have a basic theoretical understanding of what programming is and how a program is being run, in the next lesson we are going to prepare our development environment so we can practice what we are going to learn during this course. Thank you, and see you in the next lesson.